Welcome. Thank you guys for joining me. I see the illustrious Chris Smith in chat there. And we got that Dobby guy who will be happy to notice that Dobby is actually in this deck. It might be the thing that sticks out the most to you guys at first. Thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to give it a minute for people to roll on in, right? You get like, as soon as you get started, people start asking me, hey, what's going on? So, how's everyone doing? Are you guys excited for Unfun Fridays? Is anyone here going to be watching the Unfun Fridays broadcast? I believe Andrew Holder has Nilmerg on for the commentary, so that's going to be something really cool to check out. Gonna have commentator Gremlin himself, Nilmer. You'll be playing? Oh, sick. Oh, well, I definitely gotta make sure I keep this to a tight hour. Ads. Such is the life. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So many ads. We got a lot of ads. Let me see if I can... Maybe I can control that a little bit. Let me see if I can tone it down a bit. That's the dark side, right? To be on the affiliate program. Gotta help Twitch get that Skrilla. Twitch gotta get their cut, fellas. Let me see, maybe I can... I think I can control it a little bit. Where is it? Yeah, Bezel, it's gotta get his cut, man. That actually reminds me, I gotta move over my sub goal. I forgot to, there it is. My sub goal is not activated. Retry. Interesting. That's very weird. Very interesting. Your sub goal is to get a sub? Like a food? There we go. Okay, now it's up there. Now it's up there. The next... Yeah, you gotta have goals, fellas. Let's see if that's... Yeah, okay. So let's dive into just one Twitch sub. That's a pretty good goal. Stream on your birthday. That's what I did. I cheated. I started streaming on my birthday to help get the pity subs. And it's also September, so you can actually save 20% off if you want to force me to play the actual worst character, according to most people, in a webcam provisional in an actual competitive event. But let's jump into this deck a little bit, because this is kind of an interesting story. And let me know if you guys can't hear me. I had the mic turned down, just like the gain a little bit. Let me adjust this. Here we go. All right. So at Mina1, oh, okay. I liked Mina1 before Back Alley Haymaker in a weird way. Because Back Alley Haymaker makes Mina1 just like... You just build, it can't be fixed. And that's something I actually ran into with this deck. So I'm not sure for times. So with this deck, with this Mina Ashido deck, I started out by finding out that my friend Brandon Jones wasn't going to make it to locals, and I kind of rely on him to help me build decks, and he's got like a way bigger collection than I do and stuff like that, and so he's always got my back whenever we're testing stuff. He's always got like the 4 meta decks built, and I've gotten, like, normally we're testing for an event, and this was one of the few weeks where there's nothing really coming up. I didn't really have to worry about what I was going to play in Pasadena or at a webcam event or whatever. And I didn't want to bring, like, a meta competitive deck anyway. And, like, some of the newer players, they've picked up, like, a Momo deck. They've picked up, like, a Kirishima 2. There's one guy who's been playing Kirishima 2, and he's been killing it. You know, he's been picking things up really quick. You know, there's still, like, obvious things I wouldn't do, right? But he's got, like, a clear choice. Like, he makes very clear choices, even when they're not ones I would make. So, they're coming along pretty quick, I'd say, considering the game's been out for less than a year, still technically. And they've only been playing, I think, for, like, a month or two. You know, not super long, right? But so I wanted to pump the brakes a bit, stop bringing like usually it's the deck I just played at the last weekend event, because I'm going to give cards back to Brandon Jones, right? So, normally it's like Denki 1, I played Momo and brought it to a locals, and it's just like, this is what I had. You can actually check out their Twitch and watch me play Kirishima 2 like an absolute monster against new players. Yeah, it's a really new game. So I thought to myself, I've only got a couple hours anyway. I didn't want to pull out the commons boxes and stuff like that, so I thought it'd be a cool little challenge to build a deck with just cards that are on my computer desk already. So I did cheat a little bit because I borrowed 4 requesting assistants, because that card's just so good, and I just didn't have any anywhere. I was going to cheat and pull them out of my collection, but I apparently don't actually own any requesting assistants, so, you know, you could just, like, Photoshop my face on there, like, requesting this card. So I did borrow 4 of those, and then I did actually open up a couple packs that were on my desk for a couple copies of Confused, because it is an uncommon, and it is one of, like, the stronger defensive things that I thought was, like, fair. You know, I didn't have, like I don't have Cheerful Uppercut in this deck. I don't have Ice Storm. It's not really a popper deck because there are rares in it. You know, I did have Indiscriminate Shock, and I did have Blue Flame Spiral, which is an ultra rare. So, you know, Acid Corrosion Breach. I literally was like, it has Mina's face on it, and I think I needed more high blocks, so I went with that. Like, you look, the block spread is actually low favored over high, you know? So the Ultra Compressed Weights also is just there because it's like a promo sitting on my desk. And when I started to look at the cards, the first thing I did was I grouped up all the foils, all the shinies, all the promos, all the rares, all the ultra rares. Had a couple XRs to get stuck in there. I was just sorting through foil cards because we figure start with the most powerful attacks that I would have. You know, see if anything stood out to me there. And the first thing that stood out to me was I had a playset of Pillar Swing, and I had 3 Indiscriminate Shock. I also had, like, some Frog Lashings, but those are banned. So, you know, those got tossed to the side. And I knew pretty early on that if I'm going to play something that's not a really coherent strategy, I'm going to need to make up for it with, like, pure value, right? Like, just pure dunks. Get in when I can get in. And so the first thing I did after looking at Pillar Swing was go, okay, what rarity is League Interview? And it's a common. So I searched through the packs, or I searched through the piles, and I found 4 League Interview, and these were like the first cards to come into the deck. The next thing that stood out was Electric Jolt is a common, and I had a bunch of these just because when the set 1 first dropped, I played almost exclusively air decks, and I was playing this in like Air Asui because of how good Electric Jolt's effect is. It goes extremely good with Mina Ashido because you get to gain life, which did come up in one of the games that I played, maybe more than one. You know, like there's a couple times where if you gain 3 life on a turn, your opponent's next turn, they look and they go, oh man, you know, now we're off lethal by 1 or 2. It's rare, but it happens, especially with the slower decks, right? Like these decks that aren't pumping damage on everything. And so from there, it kind of just became like, what's all just the good chaos stuff I can find? You know, Graceful Maneuvers is a great speed hate card. I only had a couple of those. In the Typhoon is a promo, and at worst, it's a +1 mid block. Don't have a ton of those. Zero Gravity Lift is a common, but I only had 2 on my desk. I probably would have ran 4 if I could have. And I actually ended up using Zero Gravity Lift on Pillar Swings a lot, because I just actually needed, like, guaranteed this is going to go through. And I did end up playing against 2 5-hand size characters. So a lot of times they would have 1 card in their hand on my turn, and I'm like, well, if they're going to block anything partially, it's this. So kind of weird that I ended up gravity lifting this a lot. But also a card that usually will proc Mina's life gain, right? The deck at one point had 5 or 6 character cards in it, just because I thought having a bunch of 6 checks is going to be super important, and boy, was it ever. I cannot stress how important it was that I just had like 5-6 checks in this deck by the end of it. And so I ended up trimming it all the way down to just Dobby, because most of the other characters that I had on my desk were like Selkie, who cares about really specific keywords. Who else? There's like Todoroki 1, I think, where it's like, okay, I don't have that many ranged attacks sitting here, so he's probably not going to be something I actually side into. And I whittled it all the way down to Dobby because I wanted a different hand size, and I thought the once per game could be really fun, and it would be interesting to see what new players do against it. Spoiler, it never, ever, ever came up. I played against a Nomu and a Faith Shield deck, and I think the game, what was it? When I played against Ochako 2, I just felt way better about like seeing the mid blocks that I needed to, being a 7-hander rather than a 6. So I just wasn't feeling it on that one. So like Ochako can operate with no foundations anyway. So yeah, the once per game never came in. I did side into Dobby in round 3, which I ended up tying. Spoiler alert, I did go undefeated, but I did not win every match. I went 1-1 in the finals against Sakirashima 2. You know, it just wasn't like the quickest match, is really the best way I can put it. So I was sweating bullets the whole time. Had some really clutch Texas Smash blocks, right? Like some really weird, interesting sequencing, but we'll get into that in a minute. Blue Flame Spiral, this is a UR I actually opened in the packs looking for Confused and was like, alright, I'm just going to slide this guy in here. Never, I don't think I ever got to play it, or like the one time I did. No, I think the one time I did, somebody checked really poorly against it or something, but like it was like a struggle to get the 2 rival foundations committed in the first place when I had it. Shrapnel Cloud release again, just like, here's a big goofy dunk. It goes kind of funny with ambush tactics, right? Both as an activator for the +1 damage, but also if you play into it, it gets bonus speed, right? Like if you flip, a big tactic I had for the deck was ambush tactics on Pillar Swing. Make Pillar Swing 0 speed. Whatever, people were reducing the speed anyway, right? Like I'll reduce it from 1 to 0. You're gonna block this. That's part of the agreement, is that you block Pillar Swing, and it's gonna go to momentum, and I'll get to pass my next giant 6 diff or 5 diff or whatever, right? So especially if you like partial it, you know, it makes people really want to like block the Pillar Swing that they already want to block. So I really liked that combination. Shrapnel Cloud release just kind of goes really good in that tactic lineup, right? It's Ochako 3 cards, they go together. And then Acid Corrosion Breach again, it was just a shiny card lying around. It did hurt me when I checked it. I don't think I ever enhanced with it. Probably blocked a Merciless Rush in one of the games, but it was there. It had her face on it, like whatever. And then just in order of difficulty, these are basically just all mostly commons and uncommons that gave me bonuses to checks, right? Like I was really big on, I'm going to get a free card. I want to play these big chunky, look at this difficulty curve. Like, holy, I didn't realize it was this bad. These are actually all 5 diffs. These are all 5 and 6 diffs except the jolt and the capture, which I played one time, and the Kirishima player I played it against went, I think I'm supposed to block this, and then didn't block it. So it went to momentum, and I got to flip it for lethal damage, and it did its job. It made them think. They did not end up blocking it. We got it to go for free. I might have actually even gravity lifted it anyway, which made them really not want to block it. I do think it's interesting how bad it feels to block an attack that's going to go to momentum immediately, but sometimes you have to. So you can see these are pretty much all commons or promos. I had one cool student lying around. Struggling with studies, I almost didn't have any of these, but I found a different stack, a different stack of cards by my front door, and I was like, oh, nice. I think I picked them up from pre-release, actually. So yeah, these all commons, uncommons, except the promo cards here and a couple of rares, URs, and the attacks, and mostly set 2 stuff, right? So the dude, what rarity is that card? Is it? Why would that be sitting on my desk? Or is it? It's an ultra rare. I'm sorry I didn't have 4 ultra rares just lying around. The pillar swings I only had because they were sent to me by Andrew Holder, and it's still like with a pile of mail that just I got opened and has sat there for months and months. So the pillar swings like weren't even with cards; it was with mail, but they were on my desk, so they count. But so one thing I kind of want to set up here, if I can. This is kind of the meat of the story for me personally. Oh, we got an update, of course. So one of the things I thought was really cool while playing the deck is the really just huge chunky attacks that I got to throw made people generally miserable. You know, like the style of deck that it is, I could be throwing 2 attacks per turn. Just, a 5 diff, build, respond Mina. And that Mina response, like, gets the mental game going. The Mina response puts people in, like, this, you got to play a gravity lift for free. Like, it just, you gotta, if you can lean into that, you can really kind of flex on people with early attacks because they're really afraid of an indiscriminate shock that comes way later on turn 2, no matter what you've tapped already, And then the other thing was, this deck did a really surprisingly good job. That's 2 adverbs back. Anyway, it did a surprisingly good job of blocking. Cool student getting to cash in any momentum in like a release style way. Like, this is a chaos deck with no release. I didn't have any release, just chilling, and I had to ask for a 0 diff from people, right? So, cool student kind of filled in for that for me a couple times. I was able to stop 1 or 2 attacks from getting stun. That did come up once or twice. There was, I forget what it was, but there's one attack. I think there was a combo attack where they had to choose between stun 1 and the combo, right? So we get like some cool emergent gameplay from our uncommon. But then ambush tactics was actually really big. It made people not want to block the attacks that we talked about wanting to block, right? Like pillar swing, setting up the ambush tactics. And it caused me to get a lot of information. Seeing like the willingness for the Kirishima player to hold on to Harden Chop as a block because he really wanted that breaker because he saw that I had all these chunky 5 difficulty attacks. That made me feel really safe even though I have all these low blocks. There's a bunch of times where I would have like 4 cards in hand, all but 1 is a low block. I block a Harden Chop and discard another low block, right? And I have 2 cards in. 1's another low block. So It was really interesting to see that I almost never took damage from a Harn Chop in the first game, and so then they just became Breaker 1 blocks for him. You know, and that's usually the freest 7 damage you can get, but like my hand is absolute trash into Texas Smash this turn. You know, there's a couple turns where I was just completely wide open to Texas Smash, and they weren't able to Kirishima filter for the attacks. So, but that one was really interesting. The Kirishima game was interesting going to the tie because, you know, he doesn't reduce the attacks damage, right? So responding on Pillar Swing is actually like an okay play. When you have to do it on the first attack, though, that's super rough. The other way that the deck really gets in on people is stun 2 and stun 1 with the potential to commit another one, with stun 1 and then a potential to commit one on your turn, you know. And so the zero diff building it can't be fixed and then filtering it away to make sure you can always rebuild it was something that was really tough for this deck to get over. That was a really tough hump to try and beat. And then another thing is in the Ochako game, let me see if I can set this up on Tabletop Simulator real quick, because there's a little scenario that came up that I was surprised at how it went down. It was genuinely not like an interaction I was expecting to have at my locals, and it really made me think about like the ways that we learn from games that we play. It made me think about like the learning process in general. So let me see. This won't have it. I can probably just go to all decks with Ochako 2 to find. I need to find a Gale Force Punch Ochako. Where to go? I'm tripping. There she is. Okay. So let's go to decks with this card. I swear if this deck doesn't have Gale Force. Okay, good. Alright, so yeah, it doesn't really matter what the other attacks are. So let me set up a little board state for you here. Because this was something I don't even know if I really did intentionally. But it turned out to be really cool. So my board is this. Let me pull these out. Where is it? League interview and requesting. There it is. So I got something that looks like this. Yeah, no. It was this. I got a board that looks like this into a Gale Force Punch. And this is not the spot to be in. Let me draw some of these. This works. This is about what we had. Right? So then let's open up this Ochako deck just to get the full experience here. So we were staring down Gale Force with just a couple foundations. I don't think it matters which ones. Almost certainly one was a mediator. So we're looking at something like this, right? Let me zoom this in a bit. I know I'm losing you guys, but this was interesting to me, right? So this comes down, and I had talked about excuse me, I had talked about how I think this is game 2, and I talked about in game 1 how like encouraging training partners the most important foundation for me in this matchup. I think I discarded a card to build one with a Mina response and said exactly that, pretty much, that this is the most important card in the matchup. And the reason for that is that it is my only hope of blocking a 8-speed Gale Force Punch on turn 2. And so naturally, I have a momentum. Whoops, that's important to the story. So naturally, my opponent, going into the next game, sees that I do have one on board and I do have a way to ready it. And they have been putting their first enhance is to do the Gale Force destruction. And they choose to destroy encouraging because they know I can ready it anyway. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. They pay 3 life to give the next one +5 damage, and they give this 2 speed. And I think at this point, I do ready, right? Because they're requesting. Now we're tied, so it's fine. And I'm thinking, okay, look. I can. Oh, I think Mina was probably committed to, yeah. Because I know I can block this if I hit all my buttons and I check a 6. It would be on an 11, right? 8 speed plus 3 is 11. I check a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and if I enhance the flip ambush tactics, that gives me 11. I'd have to respond. So I'd have to get +1 from this and +1 from this, right? I'd be completely face down, tapped out, but I would be alive because Gale Force Punch will respond, go back to the hand, and give itself +5 damage, right? And we got one committed from... These are all blank. But we got one committed from playing this, right? So I can attempt to block this attack, but then the next one that comes in... Where's the deck? Did I delete their whole deck? Alright. Just grab an attack, right? So the next one will come in with the 5 damage. And I believe let's say I'm at 13 here, right? Whatever the life total was. This next one will come in for nearly lethal, respond, pick up, be played again for lethal. And I almost attempt to block this first one because I think, well, I'm not going to fake blocking it. I'm not going to throw a card away just in case. I think it was actually an indiscriminate shock. I'm pretty sure it was a low block, right? So I'm like, I'm not going to throw one away just to mill a card off the top because these odds are pretty crazy. I'm not going to sit here and do this math at locals, even if I was capable and smart enough to do it. But the big thing is, I know if I get hit by this, they pick it up and play it again. And I know the quantities of this attack are that I can fully block it. Because if they pick this up and they play a high attack at +5 damage, I'm dead. Or it puts me at 2 or whatever at best, right? Like if they play a merciless rush after this, I'm almost certainly dead for having to partial this, and then they play this on a 7, So I get hit by it, I go down to 7, and it goes back up and it comes back down. And they check poorly and they're tapped out at this point, right? So this one comes in with the +5. And I know about this one. They can't blow my stuff up anymore. They pay the 3 life again, right? And then this is... No, my health had to be a little bit higher, but either way. The point is I get hit by... this is what knocks me down to 13, I'm pretty sure. The health isn't what I remember. What I remember is that because I know about this entity and because I know I have this block here and that this one's coming in... This one had to be lethal. This one had to be lethal, though. So we'll put it at 11, whatever. Either way, I know that I have to check a 6 to block pretty much anything because all the other attacks, like a turn to dust, has stun 2, and then that shuts me out of one of my +1s anyway. I probably, if I'm going back, I should have flipped this on the first attack, even if I don't plan to really block it, because I know I'm going to have to block something, right? But I do the play here. I come in, and I actually end up checking the 6. Let's get the actual 6 for reference, right? And I managed to flip this and then tap everything out. And then the next attack they play is just for vanilla damage. And then the next attack that they have to play, they end up failing because they check poorly. And the difference in scenario is if I tap out to block this one, yes, it doesn't... yes, it doesn't deal all that damage. They get to play like their biggest, fastest attack again for free. But this one has a combo on it that says I have to block with a +3 or greater, right? Like this one's going to come in basically unblockable once I have cards in my card pool anyway, with that bonus damage and the ability to pop back up. It could again be zones that I can't block again and stuff like that. So for a long time sitting at the table while they're going through their enhances, I'm thinking to myself, though, I should just block the first one. I'm thinking to myself, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference. I'm thinking to myself, my best chance at living is that they didn't draw any other attacks. But that's not the case. My best chance at living is taking the information I actually have, right, using the tendencies of every Ochako player in the world, and this is almost certainly the correct play because the attacks they played after it were actually Relentless Barrage. They just couldn't pass the Relentless Barrage at that point, and the first one only put me down to like 3 life or something like that. So taking the information that I already have that I can take this chance and nullifying that next attack bonus, which is super relevant for a character like Ochako. Normally, you want to block everything, right? Normally, you want to not get touched by anything to deny her full value. And if I have a 4th foundation in this scenario, right? Like if after this whole first attack resolves, this second one comes down and blows something up anyway, I probably do have to block the first one, right? So the fact that we ended up tied afterwards matters a lot too, I think, into making that decision. But telling myself I should block the one that gets +5 damage seems really obvious in retrospect, but it's only because I knew I had the right matching zone. If this were actually the attack to come down afterwards, like I might regret not having my +3 block, but this one doing so much more damage, I have to respond to it. But yeah, that's just like one of those little moments where it's hard for me to feel like I'm really learning something, but this is the kind of stuff that turns the tables on people, right? Like you, as an Ochako player, if you hit somebody the first time with your biggest fucking move, you typically expect it to hit the second time, and there's almost most decks and in most scenarios, there's almost no reason not to try and block this second one. But if you only have 2 cards in hand and one of them doesn't block a third of the attacks in the game, a third of the zones, I guess, in the game, you might want to kind of force them to put the damage or encourage them to put this bonus damage on one that you can block. And if only because they had to make additional control checks. If you guys watched Unfun Fridays last week, we saw one foundation make a difference between a tie and a losing effort based on not the cleanest plays. They admit themselves that it's not specifically planned, right? So it's those kinds of things where the literally +1 to a control check and having to hit the 6, right? Like I can't take tons of credit for like making like a super skillful decision, but because I made the decision I did, it did actually end up saving me. Them getting the +2 to play the next attack on a 5 instead of a 6 would have actually mattered, right? Like where they made those checks, just little things would have changed. Being able to pass a Relentless Barrage would have absolutely changed everything. So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of really weird too, because I would have much preferred to just block the Relentless Barrages, but given where my hand was, obviously I'm going to just die to the Gale Force if I don't. So I thought that was pretty cool, pretty interesting. Some of the newer players had talked about how, it's tough to to see certain lines and philosophies, and I agree with them a lot. I don't do a good job learning in general. I have to lose to something to learn from it, which really sucks. It really actually sucks that I have to see something in action, at least maybe even as a spectator. Like, seeing like the Momo deck even in set 1 stay resource neutral was super cool, and like recreating it was pretty difficult. without just actually seeing the lines in person and like physically doing it myself. So it's very hard for me to learn lecture style, and I think that's tough for a lot of gamers in general. Not many people like read, the manuals. You're skipping through the demo as fast as you can, right? So anyways, I thought that was a neat little play, a neat little scenario that came down to things that feel like they matter but don't, or vice versa, things that don't feel like they matter but do. And I was really surprised. I was surprised at the performance of the Mina deck in general. I really did not expect to win any games playing 3 mid attacks and just this many 5 diffs, but I do think I got pretty lucky going up against 5-handers. Mina ends up as kind of like a 23 to 26 healther against decks that don't block everything, that don't block super well. So that's a really big thing to consider. And I think on the podcast last night, I was even talking to Tamara and Cardwell. I know they faced. I don't know who's actually won, but I know Nomu and Mina1 Dot have met in top 16 of like multiple provisionals. It happened like back-to-back provisionals. I'm pretty certain. So it's kind of weird that she like runs, and I think she's won both of those. That's my guess. I don't know for sure, but so that is one of the really interesting things to take note is you can kind of overextend a little bit, especially if you're playing things like Jolt. You're playing things like Blue Flame Spiral to deny them resources to attack you. Then you kind of get to extend that life total, and I think that helped me out a lot. Playing against 5-handers was definitely much easier than playing against a 6-hander, especially a 6-hander with anti-stun, anti-commit. Right, it can't be fixed, in Back Alley Haymaker is just a huge dunk on this whole symbol almost, but nearly everything in this deck. High value target also just absolutely turns off Blue Flame Spiral. You get to destroy a 1 diff, so be it. But anyways, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I thought this was a pretty cool story, a pretty cool interaction at my locals. I wanted to try to recapture some of that new player magic, right? Where I was like, okay, what if I wasn't trying to build the best deck possible for this character and for this symbol? What if instead I just built with cards that I had, and specifically the ones within arm's reach here. So I think that was like a neat challenge. We got about 20 minutes before Andrew normally goes live. Is there anyone in the chat who wants to see like a Twitch match? Let's see what they got at the last. Let's see what they got on the MHACCG Twitch. Maybe do like some analysis. What is this? Pasadena. Top 16 Pasadena. How does this look? This probably looks like total shit. Yeah, it does. Let me adjust this around. It's a tiny bit better. It's not really better. Alright, we're just gonna pop it in there. How do you guys like the presentation for the tournaments? Like with we got the, what is it? There we go. All right, that looks a little bit better. It's not great, but it's what we got. How do you guys feel about the character like background cards that they have, little info cards? I want to pitch an idea to Aspira where they could just get content creators to each do a different breakdown for a card, but I don't know if they're allowed to like work so freely. With people like they gotta get approvals in a lot of places. So, I don't know. We'll see. 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 We'll Oh man, was Kevin Broberg and Jason Flanzer not
And we're
on
back
stream?
with Travis Stangeman.
Second
Sorry,
one.
Travis.
And now that neutral uppercut might come
Wow.
Check
back
that
and
out
be
later.
like,
Yeah, this
just
matchup was miserable.
Destroy it. Have 2 more up.
Oh, this is finals? Damn, they didn't have Jason Flanzer versus Broberg on camera. That's a shame. Did they have Jason versus Jacob Johnson?
That's for almost our
I was
entire
there
life
for that.
total.
They did
Right.
not.
Sure. I am.
Let's watch some Orange Man Bad.
It's in the time. Who really knows?
I only
what's
watched part of this
I think
match.
it'll
I
be
did
very
not.
interesting to see,
I
'cause
actually
playing
watched, I
against,
think, just the ending.
one of us old heads. You know,
Yeah.
one of these guys who's been around. He knows exactly how.
I have to imagine this is somewhere in the 70-plus card range. We know Broberg's list, if we're running very similar to Toronto, to Orlando, to Gen Con, is also probably 70-plus cards. So we definitely
Gonna get rid of the slow play. Yeah, so those who don't know, or you guys don't know, the name of Daniel Nelson's deck is I refuse to get milled out on stream again. And people in the chat are talking about how it's 76 cards. More analysis and metadata, so having extra commentary solely to talk about the matchup we saw and break down the crucial cards and plays that lead to the outcome. Yeah, you're talking about like in the actual broadcast? Analyst desk, baby. That's when you know you're a real card game, when you got that real card game money. When you got a full team of people. I think a big problem is that people don't agree on stuff in this game. There's not enough that people just there's not enough agreement, right? Like people just disagree, and that can be good if it's healthy, but it doesn't make for traditionally entertaining, right? Like that's normally not what you want to see, unless it's like an ESPN hot takes, you know, Stephen A. Smith kind of a show. But like on your actual commentary, it can be weird. So also electromagnetic stomp, one of my favorite attacks in the Momo decks, just because of study group leader makes it free to like recycle, and that's so gross. Like I never want to get hit by an electromagnetic stomp ever, which means I also never want to get hit by zero gravity lift, which I think is actually the sickest play. I actually want to build decks around specifically that combo, and I'm upset that Momo feels like she does it the best specifically because she can refund that foundation. There might be something there for Froppy though, if you play like a weird grindy Froppy. Ooh, interesting. We're doing some interesting stuff with Cannon Blast. He plays his Cannon Blast, commits the Precious Lesson because we're not going to get to destroy anything with Momo anyway. Right? We're gonna have to feel that the erase is coming in. +1 high block, we love that. We're gonna play a home run Comet, absolutely trying to pressure this life total. Trying to see how many high blocks you got, young man. Gonna hit that erase. Gonna draw some cards. Probably none of them high blocks. Alright, man. Thanks for coming out. Oh, man. 1 a.m.? Sheesh. Oh, I'm going to be spectating the event, but thank you very much, Dobby guy. I hope to see more memes in the future, man. Have a great night. Oh, I missed the... Did we block the home run? We did with the jab. One of the late game additions, right? Like one of the pure value engine. I've thought for a minute that instead of running the kick package, maybe we should be running the Kirishima package in Eraserhead. He kind of gets to freely do whatever he wants, and the Kirishima package doesn't particularly synergize with itself a ton, right? It's not really about like naming keywords. The biggest thing is you gotta have combos if you want to play Binding Cloth at its full potential. And then pretty much the best combo on the symbol is Acceleration Kick. It has like some of the best, what is it, like cost to gain, right? Like it's got some of the highest ceilings and some of the lowest floors of any attack. Though you do gotta play it on a 6 typically. So. So we tried to get some cheeky pokes in early, and now we're gonna build out to a bazillion, because now Eraser can actually pass enough attacks and has enough momentum to threaten our life total, right? We saw Kevin choose to block one of the rebound kicks, but didn't block the later one, because once he had enough foundations to actually present a threat from that momentum, we decided we couldn't ramp it and clear that card pool. Rebound sidekick goes amazing with acceleration kick. You get to add it to your card pool for 2 damage and then EX it away for 2 speed, in addition to any other kicks that you played to potentially combo it. Also, if you're playing attacks that aren't kicks, right, maybe you want to start with Binding Cloth Capture to seal a foundation, then you can enhance with Reciprocal Acceleration, Rebound Sidekick, and then now you can fulfill the combo on Rebound Sidekick, even though it's on a 7 difficulty now. You know, so there's a lot of different ways you can really maneuver the Void package. And I think it's really cool to see stuff like Hardened Jab make a return, right? Just has a great block modifier, great block zone, lets you rebuy some of your most powerful foundations. Especially if we're going to Deadlock. Oh, baby. Bowstaff is a super cool card in Momo, specifically because Bowstaff tutors what Momo doesn't, right? Bo does what Mo doesn't. Is that I don't know the Sega Genesis tagline. Was it Sega does what Nintendo don't, right? So like Bowstaff can get, I believe, any asset, not just a weapon asset. So that's kind of interesting. We get the card draw engine going. We have tons of face downs. If I'm gonna take a big peek at all them face downs. Yep, Bowstaff picking up quick creation, definitely a play I see a lot of the time. Huh. Manly Friendship looks so low power to me, but it is a staple practically, right? Like, it's hard to argue with +1, -1. Very flexible. Don't get me wrong. But the block mod usually is what kills it for me. Like, it's just not tight-lipped, right? Like, I can get rid of half of its functionality if I can block with it like a motherfucker. I'm loving, like, the defensive posturing. I'm loving that, like, damage isn't being dealt, but you can clearly see where the resources shift. You know, instant Shining Flash getting rid of one of those rebound kicks, that's 2 speed, 2 damage from a potential future threat. You know, that is 1 less activation of certain effects in our deck. So I love that a lot. -2 damage here becomes super interesting, but the card pool filling up, you know, Momo isn't exactly replacing foundations as we go, so you can feel the turn coming to a close, right? Building the double quick creation is foreshadowing, because we've decided Deadlock is where we want to win this game, right? If you're not going to give us anything, if you're not going to let us have a single crumb of health, then we're just going to have to take it out to deep waters. We're going to have to take this game to the deepest part of the stage. Dan's at 10, right? He won't. It doesn't look like he has a way to specifically remove or destroy anything. Builds a deadlock threat of his own. Fruits of Our Labor is one of the few deadlock threats that doesn't get your opponent out of deadlock. It also doesn't like destroy itself. Card might be way too sneaky good for a 1-div. I know I always put it as like a 1-of because I don't rely on deadlock effects, but if people are going to not respect deadlock, that's one of the best ones. And it's right there with Taiyaki Fanatic, right? Like, I don't know how much stock we put into Taiyaki Fanatic in a deck that always has Night Watch up, blah, 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 right? But, you know, those two cards together can really chew a hand up real fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, we're at 12. And he's planning... Oh, he's got the 2 that he can remove off to the side. So he's probably planning to get out of deadlock pretty quick. And we can do some cool plays. We have Manly Passionate Guy on the board, it looks like. Maybe we flipped both of those. Maybe I'm wrong. It's very hard to tell what the name's not... Oh, those are resistances, I believe. One of the cooler plays, though, is when you respond with Night Watch to cancel something, then you block with a Night Watch, you can Manly Passionate Guy to replace it. And then your opponent is like, well, I didn't fight through anything at all, right? Like, we're back right where we started. And that's one of my favorite defensive plays. Checks a 3 to play the Haymaker. I'm assuming that's a Haymaker. Definitely one of the risks you take, right, when you're trying to use Momo's ramp ability. Typically, it's going to add that 1 difficulty. One of the things that people really like about her gameplay style, right, is you don't typically play a foundation before playing your attack. If you're playing in the Unfun Fridays, don't forget, you need to fill out the Google form or you will not get prizes. Here's the link for Unfun Fridays. I don't know if you even have, you might have 5 minutes left to sign up. But do not forget, it is in the description. You must fill out the form. Oh, I'm blocking the game. My bad. I'm blocking the game. It's pretty interesting, right? Like, there is a lot of stuff in play, but most of the power is coming from the characters themselves. You know, a lot of stuff that's in play is face down, or like Zoom doesn't do anything after the response, right? You know, we've drawn our card with Passing the Torch. We're down to like 3 playable effects in our... Oh, the quick creations. 4 different playable effects in our stage. You know, 3 iterations of one of them. And the fact that we're not getting weapons on top, and we're not trying to get weapons on top when we could get weapons on top, is telling me that Broberg's not super confident that he's actually going to land any damage here, right? Hit him with the old Villains Defeated, so we should end up with a net 1 life loss, right? Take 3, maybe we reduce damage. Knife Slice coming in here, trying to really punish potential deadlock. That's one of my favorite plays, was looping Knife Slice. I think that's actually kind of tight, only because it's like 3 health at a time. Really kind of weird that it's allowed, I guess. Like, it's not considered super degenerate. because you absolutely can just timer people. Like, it is a legitimate clock to put people on, especially if your opponent doesn't like actually slow play you, and you just every turn have an attack to tutor it. Because if you attack her, she gets it, right? Like, +1 mid block. If I'm at 22, 20 life, I can block mid and live most 99% of the time. So it's low risk. That's the biggest thing. Is it seems surprisingly low risk for Momo to pick up an attack for next turn, which I didn't really expect. You know, I didn't really think that that's the case. And once you really get down like the flow of how many blocks you can actually hold and getting like the right zones, it's so tough. Alright, we had the low block. We're going to check the 3. Ooh, we are going to tap out for this one. But he's got 3 in the pool, and we're going to jam it anyway. Let's go. That's a championship play right there. Like, it doesn't feel good for anybody, right? But if he wants to prevent Momo from having a sick defense, even with everything committed, as wild as this is, then he's going to have to erase every attack still, right? And with Momo, there is some chance of getting like some extra cool tricks. I think Net Gun Surprise goes a long way towards Momo getting past turn 2. You know, a lot of the games I see Momos, they actually have it in their opening hand. You know, they tutor for it. Reviewing it's not the worst thing. And I think Net Gun Surprise is huge. Oh, I missed some. Oh, did we get... Wait. I was looking at the software. So we're going... Oh, it's quick creations. Okay, yeah. So we don't have the erase anymore. Eraser has been tapped. And we're now going to get... We're going to... This is actually so sick. We're actually going to get... to build down the Rising Starlet from earlier, which we can then add in the weapon foundation that gives bonus damage that we just destroyed to build that. Now we have 2 ready foundations, and we can bank a momentum and then play another home run comment. Does he actually die here? Oh my god, I wish I had channel points enabled for stuff. I need to actually set up my fucking stream. Because this is a perfect will it kill moment, right? That's actually so sick. Because now we also get to Momo once per turn. If he picks up a Shining Naval laser and plays 2 more attacks, I'll lose my fucking mind. I'll like actually lose my mind. Okay, thank you. But he can pass this, which is terrifying. Because this one is currently... I can't really see this thing. I think it's 5. Or no, maybe he spent the momentum already. It's 11. I think he spent the momentum already. So it looks like it's 5 high for 11. Oh, and he doesn't go for it. Feels okay at 21 health, right? 21 health, and now we have 3 ready foundations. Damn. I'm a little insulted he didn't go for it. But hey, you know, I'm not multiple time World's Nats UK Canadian reigning champion Kevin Broberg. Because you feel good at 4, right? Like, we got significant damage, and it's up to this turn. You know, it's up to this turn for Eraser. Because Momo can pull anything out of her hat, right? Like, if you're not going to actually present 22 health, or 22 points of damage, and you can, at the very minimum, make Momo think that you can, then she's free to pick up additional attacks. You know, that one home run comment that we banked turns into 2, turns into 3 attacks now that we've attacked. We also have super zooms. We have hella zooms. Oh, did he confuse the knife slice away? I know I have to keep backing up, but everything's covered up. There's no names. I need to read. Yeah, okay. He confused the knife slice away, which is a sick play. He denies him the ability to loop that, right? Like this, the guaranteed burn. Getting rid of that's super smart. I love that play. Oh, everyone's going live for Unfun Fridays. I guess we should do a raid pretty soon. This game should close out next turn, right? Let's see. Yeah, we just got a cutesy little poke in. Did not have the ability to present lethal. We get the zoom response. We don't get the hand peek. I think zoom is a deadlock first form. Fruits of Our Labors is not, but I think deadlock. Let's see real quick. Is it first? Nope, it's just deadlock form. So there you go. At any point, we can probably just take a peek, right? Know exactly what we're dealing with here. We talked just last night on the podcast about how strong of an ability that is, right? To just know what you're dealing with. Take a look at that hand once per game. Should be the end. Daniel doing some card gamer posturing here. Cannon Blast as the can opener. Doing a whole lot of table tapping. Doing some math. I wish I could read. I think it's currently 6 high for 12. Right? We're adding in some more weapon cards. I just really want to see the block step on this one. I want to see where we end up speed and damage wise. Because we're now gaining back health. And that's where Momo, Momo starts to cut little corners, right? Like going from 18 to 20 is a big deal when you're only dealing 4 to 2 damage a turn to her. Right? Kevin was able to tap out to play 5 or 6 attacks strictly because he was above 20 health. Because he felt like and because he got rid of all that momentum from Daniel. That was a big deal. Gravity Lift is going to extend this turn in a huge way, sealing the last quick creation with Erase, blowing an Erase on that so we don't have to block the world's fastest attack twice in a turn. Love that play. Come on, just block this already. It's coming in for triple your health. Alright, once per turn, that makes sense on the first one. Is that Bow Staff? Yep, because Bow Staff is lethal, right? Bow Staff is lethal, so now it's strictly plussing. It's like super plussing us once they're actually down low enough that that's a big deal. Big mediator block. We're getting more resource weaving, more health gain from this Rising Starlet. Love that. Yep, blow up a committed one, gain 1 health back. So even if we don't kill him this turn, we're going back up to the level where we were at, right? Let's just see if this is the kill turn. I'm going to send you guys over to the old Go Beyond in a second here. The world's longest enhanced. There we go. We got some blocks down. Yeah, okay. It was the last high attack, right? Yeah. Had a cycle and everything. Had a block with an acceleration kick. Check the 3. Rip. Yeah, it looks like there's a little rules confusion. Alright. The where are we at here? Got friends of the channel going live. We're gonna send you over to Go Beyond Gaming.